Oh, thank you, Carl. Thank you so much. And once again, thank you so much for all these people who are joining this workshop today by Zoom, or all those people that are watching this video in their homes. I hope you're having a great day. As I say, we are here today to talk about a territory that all knows closely, but that never ceases to touch our hearts, accompaniment to the terminal illness. As a promotoras, we know the household receives a terminal diagnosis is not just the patient body that gets sick. The stability of the entire family shatters. In a cycle, our neighbors' lives turn in a labyrinth of fear and absolute exhaustion. So today here, we are to see what happens in the first hand in the double battle that this family face. On one hand, the logistical battle, doing the impossible to ensure their loved one has medications, they go to the appointments and get supplies, often without money or transportation. But in the other hand, and this is where our clinical and community eye comes in, is the invisible battle, the anticipatory grief. These families are already mourning a loss that wasn't happening yet. They are missing their father, mother, their child while still caregiving. They are expressing a pain of them ahead of time, feeling deeply and alone and overwhelmed by healthcare system that sometimes treat them just to another number. For a promotora, as people is not another number. It's exactly where here her role is not just important, is imperative. Our greatest work is not just fill out the paperwork. It is in the psycho-emotional support we deliver. We walk into their kitchen, we speak their language, we understand their culture, and we listen to them crying without judgment. When we validate their exhaustions and their fear, we are giving them back the dignity and the darkness in their darkness hours. At the end of the day, each of us feel a secret role. We become in the trusted person, la persona de confianza. The doctor just give them the diagnosis, as we say, they just leave. After that, the hospital discharged them, but the promotora, what about we states? We are the human face, the safe haven, and the hand that does not let go. Behind that trusted person is a honor, but also a great responsibility. Let's continue to be the beacon of light for our families, ensuring that no one has to experience the goodbye of a loved one in a total isolation. And I want to say in advance for all the promotoras watching this video, thank you. Thank you so much for your daily dedication. As you know, English is not my first language, but I'm doing my best. So thank you so much for your understanding. Please try to get my works. I'm say then this moment we gave some links for the evaluation, the initial evaluation. If you are listening this video, could be great. Maybe we can put it in the description or somewhere in the notes behind the video, and that way you can evaluate yourself too. Okay. The objective of this work is to equip you with decisions tools to support families facing a terminal illness. First, we focus on knowledge. You will learn to clearly define terminal illness, recognize common symptoms, and accurately identify the local resources and services available to our community or your community. The second, we will sharpen your practical skill. We'll practice active listening to hear that families truly need. You will learn to provide reliable information, seamlessly connect families to resources, and identify early signs of emotional distress so we can step in before a crisis happens. Finally, we aim to cultivate the key values. We are here to promote deep empathy, consistently respect cultural diversity, and strengthen your comprehensive community accompaniment. By the end of this session, you will be fully prepared to act as a vital, trusted bridge for families in need. Once again, thank you for your participation and commitment in this workshop. Let's go to the next slide. Now see, what is a terminal illness? And this is one of the questions that is in your evaluation. In advance, let's begin with our first point. A terminal illness is an advanced, progressive, and incurable condition that limits a person's life expectancy. At this stage, all existing treatments to cure the illness have been exhausted. There is no turning back. When families reach these points, the emotional weight is overwhelming, and their desperation to save their loved ones is completely natural for some families. To seek alternative remedies, explore untraditional treatments, or pray fervently for miracle. As the promotoras, we must understand that these actions are not logical refusals of medicines. They are a profound expression on anticipatory grief. This is where our practice of cultural humility becomes absolutely essential. We will incur rituals, beliefs, and decisions that may not align with our personal customs or medical training. Our role is not judge, correct, or dismiss this practice. Instead, we must respect and honor them as long as they do not cause direct harm. We met the family where they are, often in a safe, respectful space during their most vulnerable hour. And this is very important, respect. We are not here for a judge. Our second point reminds us that there is not an effective curative treatment available because a cure is not longer possible. The entry goal of care must fundamentally shift. So we move away from fighting the disease and we move toward fighting the suffering. Medication and caregiving action at this stage are completely focused on comfort and quality of life. This means aggressively managing the treating physical pain, easing uncomfortable side effects of medication, and drastically reducing the anxiety and depression. But note that this care is not just for the patient. A terminal illness places an immense psychological burden on every household. Therefore, our focus expands to alleviate the emotional distress for both the caregiver and their family members. So we ensure their final journey is defined by dignity, peace, and minimal suffering rather than trauma and unmanaged pain. And third, we must recognize that a terminal illness can last for months or even years. It is a common misconception that terminal care only lasts a few days. Disease like Alzheimer or other form of dementia can keep a patient for designated terminal phase for years. To illustrate how complex this can get, let me share a real case from our Con Amor y Dignidad program with the Love and Dignity program who was focused on caregiver and or all these families who are facing this kind of illness and stages. We working alongside to the 87-old gentleman who remaining in the terminal stage for his illness for 6 years. He has Alzheimer. His primary caregiver was his own daughter, who was 17 years old. So just 17 years old. Um, as years dragged on, the caregiver herself began showing early signs of dementia, though she was still undiagnosed. She was completely exhausted. Her own health was failing, and she was cracking, I think it's cracking napkins, tejiendo by hands just to tell them and scrape together enough money for rent. This is the reality of long-term terminal illness in a crisis with a crisis. Unfortunately, through our program intervention, we were able to step in and navigate system and successfully place both father and daughter into a safe, supportive care facility. So this story I'm just going to share with you because this story show why long-term monitoring is vital. This bring us to the fourth point. A terminal condition requires continuous round-the-clock medical care. Because the human body is actively declining, new symptoms can emerge rapidly, and existing pain can speak without warning. Managing this requires a highly organized continuous routine. As the promotoras, we help families understand that relieving physical discomfort and addressing basic bodily needs must remain the absolute priority even single day. Whether it is adjusting medication dosages, managing wounds, good care, and ensuring proper hydration, or prevent bed sores. The physical body requires constant attention. We act as a bridge to ensure the family has a steady supply of medical equipment, access to insurance care, and knowledge required to keep their loved one physically comfortable in any hour of the day or night. Finally, the last point reminds us that a terminal illness simultaneously affects physical, emotional, and social health. In palliative care, we call this total pain. We must constantly remind ourselves that emotional pain hurts just as acutely in a physical pain. This period is, without a doubt, the most fragile and vulnerable stage a family will ever experience. The social fabric of the home stretching to its breaking point. Finances drained, relationships are strained, and isolation settings. So no single person can carry this weight alone. Every member of the household, from the spouse to the adult children, must receive a dedicated psychological support and practical guidance. Our job is to help them to recognize the signs of caregivers' burnout, validate their emotional distress, and provide them with the coping mechanisms needed to face this impediment lost. By addressing the physical, emotional, and social health together, we provide a truly comprehensive network of care. So put that in your notes. Could you go to the slide 5, please? Next slide, thank you. Now let's talk about myths versus reality. Let's begin by tackling our first major misconception, the myth we often hear in the community is that a terminal diagnosis means immediate, sudden death. When families hear the word terminal, they often panic, thinking that they only have days of hours left with their loved one. This causes a wave or acute trauma and immediate despair. But the reality is vastly different. With the right medical support, proper symptom management, and continuous care, many individuals can live for months or even years with a high quality of life. As a promotora, our job is to help families breathe through that initial shock. We need to gently reframe their perspective. A terminal diagnosis does not mean life ends today. It means the focus of life changes. When we understand that time might stretch in months or years, we can help families move out of panic mode and panic mode and go into the planning mode. This allows them to focus on making meaningful memories. Suddenly, at first, and ensuring that the time remaining, however long may it be, is lived deeply and comfortably. This led directly to our second pair of points. Myth is that once a disease is labeled incurable, there is simply nothing more to do. You might hear doctors say, "Oh, we have exhausted all the curative treatments," and families interpret that as a total abandonment. They feel hopeless, as if they are just waiting for the end. But we must shoot the reality from the root of, and it's always possible to provide continuous physical and emotional support. There's always something to be done. When curing is not longer an option, healing can still happen. Healing. We shift our efforts from fighting the disease to protecting the person. There is a pain to be managed, anxiety to be calmed, comfort to be given, and dignity to be maintained. As a promotoras, we show families that our hands are never tied. We can adjust environment, connect them to emotional counseling, manage symptoms, and ensure the patient feels surrounded by love. And abandonment is never an option, or care simply changes its shape. Our third point addresses a very dangerous misunderstanding regarding resources. The myth is the palliative or comfort care is strictly reserved for the final days or hours of life. Because this belief, families often delay asking for hospital palliative service until the very last moment, causing the patient to suffer needlessly for months. The reality is the palliative care can be and is highly effective from the early stage of advanced illness. Palliative care is not about giving up. It's about living well. it can rule parallel to another supportive treatments. When introduced early, it helps manage pain before it becomes unbearable. It provides psychological tools to cope with the diagnostic and prevents frequent traumatic emergency room visits. We must educate our communities to look for these resources early. By acting as a bridge to palliative care sooner rather than later, we save families from months of unnecessary physical and emotional agony. Four, let's look at the scope of who is actually suffering. The myth is that only the patient needs help. On the surface, it looks like the person in the medical bed is the only one in crisis. But if you look closer, the reality is that the family and the primary caregiver requires just a much fundamental support. The patient is experiencing a physical decline, but the family is experiencing a total structural, financial, and emotional collapse. Caregiver neglect their own health, they keep their own medical appointment, stop sleeping, and isolate themselves from their social circles out and that they feel guilt and I have or lack of time. They're fighting an invisible battle against anticipatory grief and severe burnout. If the caregiver breaks down, the patient's care collapses. Therefore, our intervention must always view the family as a unit. We must care for the caregiver by connecting them to the respite care, support groups, and mental health resources. Okay. To wrap our discussion, this myths and realities, could you go back to the last one, another one? I'm gonna just give the last part. To wrap our discussion, this myths and realities, let's reflect on why breaking this taboos is so critical. In many of our cultures, talking about death or terminal illness is seen as a bringing bad luck, or it is met with intense denial and this denial breeds this myths and this myths bird isolating suffering families, then they don't know where to turn. As the promotoras, you are the antidote to this isolation by carrying the truth into the community. You replace fear with facts and despair with dignity. You help families realize that a long timeline is possible, that comfort is always available, that palliative care is a friend to be welcomed early, and that caregivers deserve a helping hand. You are the trusted person, the persona de confianza who stands in the gap. Demystifying the medical system and ensuring that no family walks through the valley of the terminal illness in the dark. Okay, go to the next. Let's talk about common illnesses. As a promotora, you don't need to be doctors. You must understand the physical and emotional realities of this diagnosis. Let's begin with the most widely recognized category. First is the advanced oncological condition, specifically advanced and metastatic cancer. When cancer is classified as advanced or metastatic, it means the malignant cells have broken away from the original tumor and traveled through the blood or the lymphatic system to other vital organs, such as the bones, lungs, or liver. And This stage, curative treatments like chemotherapy or surgeries have either failed or, or are causing more harm than good. The trajectory here is often a progressive, visible decline. Families will watch their loved ones battle chronic intensive pain, extreme fatigue, and a condition called cachexia, which is a severe wasting away from muscles and weight. And this is very sad to see for the family members. Patients often completely lost their appetite. And as a persona de confianza, our role is to prepare families for the physical changes, reassuring them that it's slowing the appetite, sorry, and it's a natural part of the body shutting down. You will act as a vital bridge connecting them to specialist palliative pain management teams so their loved ones can live their remaining time with dignity and peace. Could you go to the cardival? Is that a cardio? That is. Our second category involves the cardiovascular disease, focusing on advanced failure and severe heart disease. Unlike cancer, which often follows and study the downward line, advanced heart failure behaves like an unpredictable roller coaster. Patients experience periods where they feel relatively stable, followed by sudden terrifying crises where their hearts cannot pump effectively, and this causes fluid to rapidly back into their lungs, abdomen, and leg. Can you believe what it could be feels? Their roller coaster trajectory creates an immense physiological burden of a chronic hypervigilance for the families. Caregivers live a constant fear, never knowing if a sudden cough or gasp for air means their loved ones is dying right a second. They rush into the emergency room. The patient gets stabilized and they return home. But each time the patient baseline health is permanently lower. Physically, thus individuals suffer from severe shortness of breath, even if well resistant, profound exhaustion, and painful solely. Your role here is a physical, emotional, and practical. To validate the family's extreme anxiety, help them monitor early signs of fluid retention, and connect them with home-based hospice resources to manage this breathing crisis safely at home and preventing traumatic repetitive hospitalizations, right? And now, next, we must look at the advanced respiratory disease. There I got Esther. Thank you. Respiratory disease primarily is known as a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, the COPD, and the pulmonary fibrosis. This condition attacks the lungs progressively, and is stripping away a person's ability and the ability to breathe. The COPD, which includes chronic bronchitis and emphysema, causes a chronic airflow blockage. Pulmonary fibrosis, on the other hand, scars the lung tissues, making it stiff and unable to hold oxygen. Imagine the terror of feeling like you are constantly bleeding through a tiny straw. This is the daily reality of those patients. Early hunger triggers severe frenetic panic attacks and deep depressions. Patients become elderly, depend on a heavy oxygen tanks, and even the simple tasks like speaking a full sentence or slowing food leave them completely breathless. Families experience severe anticipatory grief as they watch and the loved one fighting for every single microscopic breath. As a promotora, your presence brings calm to this chaos. You provide a grounding, empathetic space, teach families basic anxiety-reducing breathing techniques, and ensuring they have a direct connection to the local durable medical equipment providers so they can never run out of the oxygen and medication requiring through this respiratory distress. Now go with the four category covers neurological condition, specifically Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, as well as the ALS, the amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. These diseases represent a profound long-term challenge. As we discussed in our CID program in the case study, conditions like Alzheimer's can place a patient in a terminal phase for years, and it causes a slow, agonizing erasure of memory, personality, also, and cognitive function, eventually destroying the brain's ability to signal to the body to swallow or move. The ALS, what is the amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, takes a different but equal devastating path. It paralyzes the voluntary muscles while keeping the patient mind completely intact. Patients slowly lose the ability to walk, use their hands, speak, and eventually breathe, while being full aware for their decline. The emotional tone on the family here staggering is that. So the experience and extending ambiguous loss, the mourning person who is still physically there, but mentally or functionally fading away. The caregiver face extreme multi-year burnout. The role as a promoter in these homes is to provide the physical and emotional accompaniment. And you are the one who listens to the caregiver exhaustions without judgments, validate their grief, and links them to vital respite care, support group, or long-term community assistance. Finally, we'll look at severe kidney and liver failure when a patient reaches the end stage of renal or hepatic disease and is either not a candidate for a transplant or chooses to stop grueling treatments like dialysis. The body enters in a final phase. Kidney failure leads to a buildup of toxic waste product in the blood, causing severe uremia, extreme itching, nausea, and progressive lethargy. Liver failure or advanced cirrhosis causes severe induced painful fluid accumulation in the abdomen called ascites and hepatic encephalopathy, which lead to confusion, agitation, and altered mental stages. In the final stage families are dealing with unimaginable situation, watching their loved ones become disoriented, restless, or profoundly weak. This is exactly where the concept of total pain manifests, impacting the physical, emotional, and social health of the entire household. To conclude, whether a family is facing metastatic cancer, the roller coaster of heart failure, the air hunger of COPD, the long goodbye of Alzheimer, or the toxic organ failure, they cannot walk this path alone. Cultural barriers often tell our families to suffering in silence. Being outside helps a vital family duty. Your cultural humility breaks that isolation. You don't enter as a cold medical authority. You enter as a persona de confianza. You respect the customs, sus prácticas. You validate their heartbreak. You build a loving bridge to local palliative care and community resources. By mastering the knowledge of these trajectories, you ensure that no family or community faces a storm of terminal illness in the dark. Let's consider common physical symptoms. As we look closer at terminal care, we must understand a fundamental truth. Every single person experiences different symptoms. The intensity and evolution of these symptoms vary drasticamente depending on the specific illness and medical treatment received. There is no single roadmap, which causes massive anxiety for families wondering what is normal. Two of the most widespread symptoms are extreme fatigue and shortness of breath or dyspnea. This fatigue is not typically tiredness, estar cansado. It is a constant heavy exhaustion that offers absolutely no relief, even after hours of rest. When combined with the dyspnea, it triggers a primal panic in the patient and a wave of helplessness in a family. As a promotora, your role here is to bring stability. You validate their fears. Teach the family basic comfort measures like using a portable fan or adjusting the patient positioning, and ensure they have direct connection to the medical oxygen and palliative care. Next, we see closely linked cluster of symptoms that severely impacts the patient's physical body. Constant nausea, involuntary and progressive weight loss, and drastically decreases appetite, which often leads to a complete rejection of food. The nausea can be direct result to the devastating illness itself, or a brutal side effect or a heavy medical treatments. When a patient stops eating, their body naturally begins to waste away. For many families, especially in our communities, cooking and feeding someone is an ultimate expression of love and care. Witnessing a loved one reject food triggers immense emotional distress and deep sense of failure in the caregiver. As a persona de confianza, you must step into this vulnerable space with deep cultural humility. Gently educate the family that a decreasing appetite is a natural part of the body slowing down, not a sign that the patient is giving up. Help them pivot from showing love through food to showing love through gentle touch, present, a quiet, accompanying, companionship. This brings us to the deeply ambivalent symptom, persistent pain, and generalized muscle weakness. Persistent pain is one of the greatest fears patients and families have. It is constant, exhausting, and it destroys any remaining quality of life. This level of pain cannot be managed with over-the-counter remedies. It strictly requires specialized medical management and dedicated palliative care team. Running parallel to this pain is a profound loss of muscle strength. As the body declines, the patient becomes weak, eventually losing the ability to stand, turn over in bed, or even leave a glass of water. The rapid loss of independence can strip away a patient's dignity and force the families into demanding the fully time physical care given over the day or overnight. Our role as a promoter is vital here. We advocate for the family to ensure the patient's pace medication are adjusted properly, and you connect them to the resources for durable medical equipment, like hospital beds, wheelchairs, and lift assist. All of this to keep both the patient and the caregiver physically safe. And finally, we must address sleep problems such as severe insomnia or highly regular sleep patterns. The patient often reverse their days and nights or wake up frequently to unmanaged pain, anxiety, or breathing issues. When a patient cannot sleep, the primary caregiver does not sleep either. This triggers a dangerous cycle of extreme caregiver burnout and sleep deprivation, punish the family to their breaking point while they navigate their own anticipatory grief. To conclude, managing these eight common symptoms require a continuous, compassionate circle of care. Families are facing unimaginable situation, and they cannot carry this weight in isolation. As a promotora, we represent an important help. You do not replace the doctor, but you are the eyes and hands and mouth inside the home. By mastering the knowledge of this physical symptom, and you empower caregivers, demystifying that decline and build a loving bridge to local resources to ensure that no families walk through the dark valley of the terminal illness alone. Could you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay. Up to this point, we have talked intensively about the physical decline caused by terminal illness. But today, let's go and see now deeper into the invisible storm, the profound emotional impact of the patient. What is receiving a terminal diagnosis triggers in a physiological earthquake. Patient immediately express an overwhelming rush of a core emotional response, primarily deep fear, intense sadness, and burning anger. They feel fear of the unknown fear of physical pain, and they are terrified in fear of leaving in their families behind. They experience profound sadness and mourning for the life they expect to live. And beneath that sadness, there is not often a deep sense of anger and the unfairness of the illness or frustration with the own body for filing them. As a promotora, we must understand that the emotions are not symptoms to be fixed. They are entirely natural reactions to an unnatural crisis. Our role as a persona de confianza is to increase a safest place where the patient doesn't have to pretend to be strong. You listen, you validate their anger, and you let them know whatever they are feeling is completely okay. This brings us to the set of emotional challenges. Acute anxiety and profound loneliness. The terminal illness breeds at a very specific, suffocating kind of anxiety. Patients live with constant panic attack, rapid race, and racing talks about their decline. This anxiety often compounded by the heartbreaking sense of isolation, even surrounded by a loved family. A terminal patient can feel completely and utterly alone. They look at the world moving forward outside their window while their own world has stopped. They often hide their deepest fears and thoughts because they do not want to burden or upset their spouses, children, or parents. They suffer in silence to protect the ones they love. This is where your presence as a promotora becomes important because we are the supportive professional outside the immediate family circle. Patients will often share things that they're hide from everyone else. You can break that wall of loneliness simply by pulling up a chair, looking them into the eyes and providing compassionate and not judgmental presence. Just listen. Some people are ready for the speak. Some people are just not ready for it, but you are there just to do what they want to decide to do. Third, patients face a crucial uncertainty about the future, coupled with a devastating loss of independence. When you are healthy, you plan your week, your month, your next 5 years. For a terminal patient, their certainty just vanishes. They don't know how they feel tomorrow morning. If they will survive the month or what the actual process of passing away will look like. This constant ambiguity is mentally exhausting. Running parallel to this uncertainty is the painful loss of their autonomy. A person who was once the head of the household, a provider, or a caregiver themselves suddenly becomes dependent on other of the most basic private human needs like eating, taking a shower, getting out of bed, or using the restroom. This loss of control can strip away a person's dignity and sense of self-worth, leading to deep depression. As a promotora, our job is to help families find a way to restore a small element of control of the patient. Whether it is letting them choose what time they eat, what they wear, or involving them in family decisions. We help them to retain the dignity and agency of along as possible. Finally, here we must address an emotional trauma of drastic changes in the body image. Terminal illness alters the physical body ruthlessly. Patient might experience dramatic weight loss, hair loss from treatments, scar from surgeries, or the sudden need for visible medical equipment like oxygen tubes, wheelchairs, or feeding bags. When a patient looks into the mirror, they no longer recognize the person looking back at them. This change can cause severe shame, causing them withdraw from social visit and isolate themselves even further. To conclude this part, addressing the emotional impact of a terminal illness requires a continuous, deeply human circle of care. The physical pain is only half the battle. The physiological suffering hurts just cause acutely. Families are facing an unimaginable situation trying to manage these heavy emotional shifts while navigate their own anticipatory grief. As a promotora, our role is vital reach. As I say, we are with mastering the understanding. We have the power to empower them, both the patient and family, to face those emotional storms with dignity, validation, and onward support. Can we go to the next? Thank you. As we move forward in our training or this workshop, we must shift our focus from the person in the medical bed into the people standing right beside them. When a terminal illness enters a home, it doesn't just affect the patient. It causes a total structural, financial, and emotional collapse of the entire family unit. The family members suddenly find themselves thrust into the role of full-time caregivers, facing unimaginable situation completely unprepared. Here, as the promotora, we must always look at the caregiver with the same level of concern that we lack the patient. While the medical system focuses heavily on the managing the patient physical decline, the family is often left to the wave and invisible. They are not visible for nobody. A silent battle against an overwhelming tide of responsibilities happens. Today, we are going to break down on a specific emotional, economic, and social challenges that this family face. But understanding these pressures, you will be better have a better equipment to walk into these homes with deep cultural humility, recognizing the signs of crisis before a complete breakdown, of course, and acting as a vital person de confianza o una persona que se necesita desesperadely need. So let's focus first on the emotional tool. Starting with constant stress and caregiver burnout. Caregiver for a terminal ill loved one is a 24 day and 7 day a week with job with no breaks, no sick leave. The stress is relentless. The caregiver lives in a state of constant hypervigilance, waking up at the very wrong, monitoring medication, managing good care, coordinating doctor's appointment. Over time, this chronic stress develops into a severe caregiver burnout and sensory overload. Burnout isn't just being tired. It is an absolute exhaustion of physical, emotional, and mental strength. Caregivers reach a point where they feel entirely depleted, yet cannot stop because their loved ones so very dependent on them. They often experience several sleep deprivation, which drastically impairs with their ability to cope. As a community worker, we must look for the warning signs of burnout, extreme irritability, frequent crying, forgetfulness, and physical symptoms like chronic headaches or body pain. When you see this, your role is to validate the exhaustions and see if they need to hear from you what is the entirely normal or what it means burnout. And they're not asking for help, you can just tell them that you are there, but if it's necessary or something that they need from you. The physical exhaustions lies even the heavy emotional burden. Profound sadness mixed with toxic feelings of guilt and inadequacy. It happens because caregivers love the person that they are attending. So they set impossibly high standard for themselves. They feel like they must be perfect nurse, the perfect emotional support, and the perfect providing all at once. When they are inevitably falling short, perhaps because they lost their patience, fell asleep for exhaustions, or couldn't ease their loved one's pain. They are consumed by severe guilt. They express feelings and adequacy and constantly thinking, oh, I'm not doing enough. Oh, I'm just foul. They are suffering. On top of this guilt, they are grieving in advance. This is the anticipatory grief that we discussed earlier, or profound sadness, or mourning the loss of a person who is still physically present but fading away right before their eyes. In many of our cultures, expressing frustration or sadness while caregiving is highly taboo, causing caregiver to suppress their feelings. As a persona de confianza, you break into this taboo, you provide safe, no judgmental space where the caregiving can voice their guilt, cry frequently, and receive the emotional support that they are doing or they need during the best and they can under breaking circumstances. Now let's go pick out the harsh practicals realities, the economic and social challenges. A terminal illness is a financial catastrophe for most households. Families face a sudden, massive increase in medical and care expenses, even within age. The cost of specialized medications, continuous medical supplies, durable equipment, and specialized nutrition add up rapidly. To make matters worse, this increase in expense usually happens at the exact same time that the family's income's dropping. Caregivers are frequently forced to make a drastic job change. They have to cut back their working hours, take unpaid leave, or quit their jobs and try to provide full-time care. If the patient was the primary earner, the people who was getting the money for the family, the crisis are doubled. This increase and financial pressure cooker. The families find themselves choosing between buying the necessary medical supplies or paying the rents. As we saw, of course, in the Conamore program case study that we where the 17-old caregiver had to kidnap kids to just stay afloat. Your role as a bridge to the local resources is a critical here. We must proactively connect these families with a financial aid, utility assistance programs, food bank, and medical supply registers to take the financial weight off their shoulders. Finally, we must address several social limitations, a progressive social isolation that these families endure. As the illness advances, the caregiver's life screens completely to the premier and the patient bedroom. There is absolutely less time and eventually no time for a personal life. Caregiver miss out on a family gatherings, hobbies, friendships, and community events. Slowly, but subtly, um, friend and extended family members stop calling or visiting, often because they don't what to say or because the caregiver is always too busy to engage. This creates a dangerous bubble of progressive social isolation. The caregivers feels entirely cut off from the outside world, trapped in a continuous loop of sickness, pain, and sadness. This isolation feeds their depression and makes the anticipatory grief even harder to bear. To conclude this part, when you walk into a home as a promotora, remember that you are the entry space where the family is being stretched to its absolute breaking point physically, emotionally, and financieramente. Your presence is important because you address both sides of this coin. Through your cultural humility, you honor their dedication while breaking their isolation. You help them navigate the complex economic system to find the local resources, and you offer the continuous, the tender emotional support that keeps the giver from collapsing. By being that trusted person, you ensure that as they walk through this painful valley of loss, they are held, they are heard, they are never alone. Let's go see now what is a palliative care. Thank you. Now that we understand that heavy physical and emotional weight terminal illness plays in a household, we need to talk about the solution. Today, we're answering the crucial question: what is palliative care? Simply put, these are specialized medical services entirely aimed at providing the quality of life of people living with serious, advanced, or incurable illness. As a promotora, it is vital that we understand this definition clearly. In our communities, there is a deep speed fear surrounding this term. People often hear palliative care or comfort care and think that it's mean a medical team is giving up the patient or that death is only hours away. But that is a dangerous misunderstanding. Palliative care is not about giving up life. It's about changing the focus of medicine from fighting an incurable disease to protecting the dignity, comfort, and peace of the human being inside the bed. Let's look at the core services included in this care, starting with the pain control and symptom management. As we discussed earlier, the terminal illness brings several persistent physical distress, like air hunger of the COPD, the chronic pain on the metastatic cancer, or the painful swelling for the heart failure. Palliative care brings an specialized team of doctors and nurses who are experts in aggressive symptoms relief. They do not just prescribe standard medications. They fine-tune treatments to eliminate nauseous, easy breathing difficulties, and keep pain under restricted control without leaving the patient completely seated. Nada que esté dormido. This allows the patients to remain awake, alert, and comfortable for interacting with their family. And your role as a promotora de confianza is to help families recognize that suffering in silence is not a virtue. We use our voice to reach them to this specialized medical team early, ensuring that the physical discomfort is addressed before it escalates into a traumatic crisis. But palliative care goes far beyond this physical body. It provides deep emotional support, a spiritual care, and comprehensive medical coordination. This type of care treats the whole person, which we call total pain. The palliative team includes social workers, a promotora, counselors, and spiritual advisory who step into the home to validate the patient's fears, can cure anxiety, and help them to process their thoughts about the end of the life. Furthermore, this service provides comprehensive medical coordination. Navigating the healthcare system is a chaotic nightmare for an exhausted family. They are often shuffling between different clinics, pharmacies, and specialists who don't talk each other. So the palliative care team acts as the central hub. They coordinate all the medical equipment, the oxygen supplies, the prescription, lifted that massive administrative burden ended off the family's shoulders so they can focus on what truly matters, being present with their loved one. The four vital components is guidance for the families. Palliative care treats the family and the patient as a single unit, as I say. As we know, caregivers are facing unimaginable situation, drawing in a constant stress, financial strain, and profound anticipatory grief. So they are constantly wondering, what do I do next? How do I handle this? Palliative care provides direct training and psycho-emotional education for the caregivers. It teaches them how to safely move the patient, how to administer comfort measures, and how physical signs to explain the illness process. This guidance replaces the paralyzing fear with a practical confidence. By introducing these services into home, we give the family a professional safety net. They no longer feel isolated or abandoned by the medical system because they know a team of experts is standing right behind them, holding it up. To conclude this part, let's look at the main goal of the palliative care to help people live with the greatest possible comfort, peace, and dignity. This is about adding quality to the days, regardless of how many days are left. It ensures that the final chapter of a person's life is not defined by trauma, sterile hospital walls, and unmanaged pain, but by love, comfort, and peaceful closure at home. As a promotora, your role is absolutely important here because of cultural barrier, pride of fear, or family relative asks for this specialized service on their own. So you could share humility allows to break through that resistance. You are the trusted face who demystify palliative care, explain these beautiful benefits, and build what that loving bridge to the local resources. By carrying this information into our community, we ensure that our families do not walk through the storm terminal illness again in the dark. Let's talk about the hospice. And can you go to the next at the hospice and then left of the care? Now we are going to talk about a vital resource that represents the ultimate safety net for families and the very end of life. Hospice as end of life care. So, what exactly is hospice? It is a specialty service designed exclusively for patients with advanced terminal illness who have a limited life expectancy. Typically, a prognosis for a 6 month or less. This depends of the doctor. The doctor make a check of the patient and he prioritize when the hospice is gonna be resource for this patient. But sometimes the family member can ask for hospice. As a promotora, we must understand that choosing hospice is not giving up hope. Instead, it is redefining what hope means. We are shifting hope from a medical miracle that is not longer possible to guarantee of dignity, peace, and freedom of pain. In our communities, the word hospice is often met with a heavy resistance and fear. Families think it means that that is coming maybe tonight or in 2 hours. Our role is demystify this word, explain what hospital is not a place where people go to die, but it's a high quality medical service that helps patients live as fully and comfortably as possible in their remaining time. Let's see. Let's break down to the comprehensive list of the available services that hospice provide. First, it includes highly specialized medical care symptom medications. The hospice teams consist of doctors and nurses who are experts in managing advanced symptoms. Managing, they know exactly how to treat the pain of metastatic cancer and the air longer of COPD or the severe agitation of end-stage dementia. All medication related to the terminal diagnosis are completely covered and delivered directly to at home. And this is all right. They have hospices, all right. Additionally, hospice provides all necessary durable medication equipment. This means the families is supplied by the hospital beds, oxygen concentrators, wheelchairs, and incontinence supplies that absolutely not cost to them. This leaves a massive financial and logistical burden of the caregivers. So, uh, who are already dealing with an imaginable situation, this is a very helpful resource. As a promotora de confianza or health in families, we see that the hospital brings a full team of professional reinforcement directly into their living room to handle the heavy physical demands of the terminal health. They're helping all these families to ensure they can breathe of the situation. But hospital care goes far beyond the physical medicine. It's includes profound psychological and spiritual support along the direct guidance for the family. Hospitals recognize the concept of total pain, understanding that the emotional and spiritual distress hurts just as deeply as the physical pain. The hospice team includes social workers, includes counselors, and spiritual advisors who support both the patient and the family as they process their fears, anxieties, and the weight unimpeding loss. Furthermore, hospice provide direct training for the primary caregivers. It gives them the practical family guidance they need, teaching them how to safely administer medication, how to turn in a patient in bed to prevent wounds, and what physical signs to look for as they end the process. This guidance replies the family's paralyzed in fear with confidence and control. Crucially, this support doesn't stop when the patient passes away. Hospice programs provide um, continuous follow-up and grief counseling to the family for up to a full year after the loss, helping them navigate their grief journey. This is a very, very good service. Our next point addresses the location of care, and this is highly relevant information for communities. Hospice is not a building. You are not forced to go someplace. It's a philosophy of care that's mean the passion, whatever they call home. In the vast majority of the cases, is provided in the absolute comfort and the passion of home, surrounded by their family, their belongings, the pets, and their favorite music. However, hospice care is highly flexible. If the patient's symptoms becomes too severe to manage at home, or if the caregiver experiences extreme burnout, and care can also be provided in a hospital, specialized inpatient hospital center or nursing home for adults. If it is necessary, they can move to the patients to a center or a nursing home or a home for other adults. The goal remains exactly the same regardless the building. To write the patient in bucket of continuous compassionate support. As a support. As a promotora, we must educate families that they have choices. We help them to understand why they can keep their loved ones at home with the fully backing of the medical team and students that they find environmental and peaceful and familiar. To conclude, hospice at the end of life represents the highest expression of a human compassion within medicine. It ensures that the person's final chapter is defined by dignity, comfort, and peace, rather than sterile emergency rooms and unnecessary suffering. Yet, because of cultural barriers, pride, or devastating fears, our family rarely ask for hospital on their home. They wait until the very last day of life, missing out of months of free and vital support. This is exactly where our role as promotoras is important. We allow us to break through the denial and the taboo surrounding that. Um, and let's go see. I'm just watching the time. Let's go to the next. Building directly on that we just discussed regarding hospice is so crucial to draw a clear line of compassion between these two models of care, which bring us to the core characteristic of palliative care. While the hospice is strictly designed for the very final months of life, palliative care offers a much rather flexible timeline. It can begin at any stage of a serious illness, even if it's not serious, if a person is recovering, right from the moment of the initial diagnosis. A patient does, doesn't have to be close to the death to receive this level of support. In fact, introducing an early radically changes the trajectory Introducing it early radically changed the trajectory of their illness for better. The second major distinction is that palliative care can be combined with a curative treatment. In hospice, the family must make the difficult choice to stop all curative intervention. Palliative care, however, runs completely parallel to active treatments. A patient can undergo aggressive chemotherapy, receiving radiation, and participate in experimental clinical trials to fight their disease, while simultaneously having a palliative team managing their pain, nausea, and emotional distress. This means the family never has to choose between fighting the illness and fighting the suffering. Furthermore, this service attends to a wide range of the various illnesses, not just the terminal ones. It provides a massive safety net for individuals living with complex chronic conditions like kidney disease, multiple sclerosis, or advanced diabetes. Just like hospice, it completely supports both the patient and the family as a single unit providing the same depths, psychological counseling, spiritual care, and practical family guidance to prevent caregiver breakdown. Um, and yeah, ultimately, the most important takeaway is that both services seek to fundamentally improve the quality of life. Whether the patient is not on hospital or receiving palliative care, the ultimate mission remains identical to ensure that the comfort, peace, and human dignity always take center stage in the healthcare journey. As a promotora, our ability to explain this difference clearly will empower family to ask for the right type of care at the right time. Let's go and move to the role of the promotoras. Moving from the technical structures of care, let's focus centrally on what we can do and intro this ecosystem, which brings us to the role of the promotora or the CHW. Understanding the precise boundaries of our role and is what allows us to protect our families while maintaining our professional integrity. Let's look first at what promotora must do within the home. First and foremost, we are training to listen actively and with empathy when a family is drowning in panic. We do not walk in trying to talk over them. We pull up the chair, silence the noise, and hear what they are truly expressing. From that deep listening, we are able to provide reliable, accurate information and clears up the myths and taboos surrounding end-of-life care. We serve as a history anchor to guide families during their deepest moments of doubt, helping them to process the option without judgment. Crucially, we act as the ultimate bridge to the connection with the built-in community resources, whether it's a local hospice program, food bank, or financial aid. By showing up consistently, we drastically reduce the progressive social isolation that traps caregiving in their homes. And finally, we look primary caregiver in the eye and aggressively promote self-care for the caregiver, reminding them that they cannot pour from an empty cup and that their health matters just as much the patient. In doing all of this, we successfully step into that vital space is their persona de confianza. However, to be a safe and effective bridge, we must absolutely clear about what promotoras must not do. We are the pillar of the community support. We are not clinical providers. Therefore, we must never diagnose illness or condition, never give a diagnosis. Even if a symptom seems completely obvious to you based on your training and your past experience, making a diagnosis is strictly out of our bounds. Along those same lines, we must ever prescribe medication or treatments. We do not tell the family to adjust dosages, change medication routines, or try and prescribing home remedy for clinical symptoms. We must never substitute the opinion of the work of the medical staff. If a doctor or hospice or a hospice nurse gives a directive or job is to help the family understand and follow that directive, never contradict it or offer an alternative clinical option. Lastly, we do not perform any medical procedures. We do not check vitals to make medical assessments, administer injection, or manage medical illness. Ultimately, our power lies in our humanity, our trust, and our ability to bridge systems. By masterizing what we can do to support physical and emotional health, we strictly respecting what we cannot do clinically. We remain safest, most effective, and most trusted voice in our community as during their darkest hours. Let's go with the next. Now that we have established the strict professional boundaries of what we can do, let's talk about our most powerful tool in the field, compassionate communication. When a family is facing an unimaginable reality for a terminal illness, the words that we use and the way that we listen can either build an unbreakable bridge of trust or accidentally push a suffering caregiver into a deep isolation. Let's look closely at the fundamental principles that must guide every single interaction that we have inside and the homes. First, we must listen without interruption. When an exotic caregiver or a patient begins to speak, our instinct might to be jumped into with by solution arresters. We must resist that urge. True active listening means giving them the gift of silence, letting them finish their thoughts, and following them to empathy their heavy hearts completely before we say a word. From that silence, we are able to show genuine empathy. Empatía genuina. Empathy is not about feeling pity or feeling sorry for someone. It's about stepping into their shoes, sitting with them in their pain, and letting them know what they suffering matters to us. Running parallel to empathy is her duty to validate people's feelings. In many families, caregivers feel an immense amount of guilt to feeling angry, tired, or sad. They might say, "Oh, I shouldn't be complaining." Your job as a promotora is to validate them by telling them that their anger is normal, their fatigue is real, and their sadness is completely justified. Furthermore, we must respect the culture and beliefs. As we discussed with the cultural humility, you will encourage the families who rely heavily on specific rituals, on religious practices, or traditional remedies. We honor those beliefs without judgment. And finally, we must maintain absolute confidentiality. The things families share with us during their darkness, most vulnerable hours are scared. Protecting that privacy is the only way to maintain their the persona de confianza. It's the only way that we are the persona de confianza. To put this principle into actions, we don't need complex medical jargon or long, complicated speeches. The most healing phrases are incredibly simple and direct. You can use a few phrases that should keep your heart engaged during the home visit. And when you see a caregiver drowning tasks and stress, pull up a picture, look at them into the eyes, and say, "I'm here to support you." This simple phrase shifts the weight off their shoulders and remind them that they have a partner in this fight. When a patient or family member opens about their deep fears, anger, or anticipatory grief, honor their vulnerability by saying, "Thank you for sharing your experience." This simple process validates their courage for being honest about their pain. And finally, the most powerful words a promotora can ever deliver to a home trapped in institutional isolation are, "You are not alone in this process." Ultimately, compassion and communication is not a clinical technique. It is an act of profound humanity. By listening without interrupting, respecting their beliefs, protecting their privacy, and using those simple, powerful phrases. And you become the steady anchor that holds the families together. You remind them, even in the middle of the devastating storm, there is a safe, loving space waiting for them. And thank you so much for carrying this compassion into our community. The next slide talks about what is important and the self-care of the promotora. We must turn the focus watching on this because it's absolutely vital for our work. Through the decision, we have talking about being the bridge and pillar exchange and personal confianza for families dealing with the unimaginable pains. But we must completely honest with ourselves. Accompanying patients and families through terminal illness, anticipatory grief generates profound work, physical fatigue, and intense emotional stress. We're human beings, not machines. When you walk into a home and absorb the sadness, the anger, and the heartbreak of a family facing loss, you carry a piece of that weight with you. If you don't learn how to unpack that weight, it will lead to the secondary trauma and severe burnout. You can improve from an empty cup. To be a sustainable, effective resource for the community, you must care for yourself with the exact same first compassion that you show for your families. Let's go see some key strategies that we must practice. We can practice here. First, you must make a non-negotiable priority to rest adequately. Emotional labor drains the physical body just as much as manual labor. You need sleep, proper nutrition. You need to let your nervous system to rest after having home visit. And second, you must establish healthy boundaries. And third, you need a safe space to process where you witness, which is why it is vital to talk with your coworkers, your fellow, and you have a promotora that you are not alone in this work. We have techniques here in Visión y Compromiso, in special of all the promotoras working with these cases every single day. When we can create a space, sharing history and crying together and band your frustration and support one another is safe and can be in very confidential environment. First, you must intentionally participate in recreational activities. The things that bring you pure joy and have absolutely nothing to do with the healthcare caregiver. Okay? And finally, never be afraid to seek a professional emotional support. Here, I think we still have some sessions for emotional support. If a case triggers you on past grief, or if the sadness becomes too heavy to carry alone, talk with a counselor or mental health professional. Seeking help is a sign of ultimate professional maturity, not a weakness. Okay? And lastly, I'm going to close with a presentation. I was very worried for the time. Ultimately, self-care is not a luxury of a selfish act. It's an act of preservation. By resisting adequately, setting firm boundaries, or learning your coworkers, enjoying your personal life, and seeking support when needed, you protect your own physical and emotional health. You ensure that you can continue to be the beautiful and vital life of your community for many years to come. Thank you so much for taking care of families, but please remember to take care of yourselves. And thank you so much for this time. I'm just gonna close here my presentation. Thank you, Carmen.